Welcome, everyone, to day two of the Virtual Investors Forum of Newfoundland Gold. My name is Greg McCoach, editor of the Mining Speculator. I'll be your moderator today. With me, I have three panelists, and for the next 40 minutes or so, we'll be interacting. I'll be moderating this panel regarding the new discoveries that are being made in the Newfoundland Gold area. We have a staking boom, a modern day gold rush going on. It's a district scale area play that I think is the hottest thing going, not just in North America, but around the world at this point. So it's very exciting. For attendees, I think this is one of those moments as investors. This could be a very profitable conference for you to listen in on and learn about the companies that are involved with this great area play. Just some housekeeping. We'll first let our panelists each introduce themselves for 3 to 4 minutes each. Once they're done, then I will begin asking some questions. And as attendees, you should participate as well. We'll leave 15 to 20 minutes at the end of our hour for your questions. I can see them in the Q&A section, and I will try to get to as many of those as possible. So with that, why don't we start with Craig? Craig Roberts, you go first. 3 to 4 minutes on yourself and your company. Chris, you'll be second, and Janet, you'll be third.
Great, thanks, Greg. So to introduce myself, I'm a mining engineer by background. Spent a number of years in operations, mostly underground mining. Worked for Fluor for quite a number of years doing mining engineering, feasibility study type work. And then I've been mining investment banking for about 18 years with First Marathon, National Bank Financial, PI Financial, and more recently, the CEO of Newfoundland Gold. So I'll just give a really quick run through on Newfound. 152 million shares issued, no warrants, very minimal warrants, at least 600,000 or so. We have 79 million in working capital, and we're currently executing on a 200,000 meter drill program on the Queensway project in Newfoundland. Just really briefly, some of the key people involved in the company: Colin Cattell and Benny Laviolette are the two founders. They put this company and the project together starting in 2016. There's a very large amount of work done between 2016 and 2019, well in excess of $5 million spent on geochemical surveys, geophysics, other kind of work to advance the project. Late 2019, we drilled the discovery hole at Queensway, 19 meters of 93 grams. Subsequently went public with Canaccord and BMO leading that IPO. And then since then, we've continued to step out at the Keats zone from that initial discovery hole. And we're now 425 meters down dip on the Keats zone. Our latest hole was 4.7 ounces per ton, actually over 25.6 meters. That's 146 grams per ton. And there's been really some outstanding widths and grades right from surface down to that most recent and deepest hole. The project itself is over 100 kilometers north to south. It's staked on two very deep crustal faults, the Appleton JBP fault. There's more than a dozen high-grade showings or zones with historic high-grade drilling along these structures. To this point, we've primarily focused on Keats. Made a new discovery at Lotto, about 2 kilometers north of Keats, which the highest grade interval there is about 2.5 meters of 225 grams. But we're starting to see some good continuity there, and very excited to be stepping out 2 kilometers and getting those kind of grades in similar type of mineralization. So really, there's two aspects to what we're doing in our execution of the drill program. We're stepping out and infilling on the targets and discoveries we have to this point. And then we're also aggressively going after quite a number of other high-grade targets along both the Appleton and the JBP fault. We think there's very good potential that there's quite a lot of repetition of this type of mineralization. Quentin Hennig came to site in early 2020. Quentin was involved in with Newmarket and Kirkland Lake Gold when that transaction happened, and is very familiar with the Fosterville style of mineralization, and where we think there's very strong similarities in the style of mineralization, that the high-grade gold we have is explained as epizonal type mineralization without sort of getting into the details on that. That's sort of been a breakthrough for us in understanding this type of mineralization and how to explore it. And, previous explorers here did not have that model and understanding. And it's certainly been very helpful to us in both at Keats and Lotto and also in the new targets that we're drilling.
Great.
With that, Greg, stop there.
Yeah, let's do the introductions first. We'll get more into those geological questions. Chris, why don't you do your intro on yourself and your company?
Thanks, Greg. I'm Chris Healey. I am a director and the chief geologist for K9 Gold. I'm a professional geologist registered in Newfoundland and other jurisdictions. Have been working in the business for over 50 years. And as Greg mentioned earlier, this is probably the most exciting area play that I've ever seen. It's just phenomenal what the results of our neighbors are getting. We acquired this property, Stony Lake property, last year. It is a large property, 13,000 plus hectares, 27 kilometers north to south. The north boundary is immediately adjacent to Sokoman's Moosehead discovery. We're about 1.5 kilometers south and along the exact same structure. When we acquired the property, there had been quite a bit of historic work, but not much in the way of comprehensive covering the whole area. The previous operator had flown a regional airborne magnetometer survey, which provides some very good background information. And we decided as a strategy we would develop a good overall picture of the whole property before starting to pick specific drill targets. And we've stuck with this strategy. We have continued with airborne VTEM, time domain electromagnetic survey last fall, looking for conductive material. We have done LiDAR, orthophotos. We've done some more prospecting. We have prospecting crews out right now. We did 60 kilometers of IP on 2 grids earlier this year, and we just got the results, the preliminary results from that on Friday last week. So we're in the process of interpreting that. But it's looking like we have some very, very good-looking targets, in particular just south of the border with Sokoman. So that's exactly where we would hope to be targeting as our highest priority. And we looked at, there's some old drilling in that area, which had some low-grade mineralization, probably the holes drilled in the wrong direction. The core for that, for those holes drilled in 2002 is stored by the Newfoundland government in Buckens. They do a wonderful job of storing historic core. So we were able to see that last week, and not surprisingly, the core looks very, very much like some of the core that Sokoman has on their website, with the veining and the like. So we're pretty excited about what we've seen there. We will be starting a drill program, 5,000 meters, in about 2 weeks, and we're geared up, ready to roll.
Super.
Thank you.
Janet?
My name's Janet Lee Sheriff. I am the executive chair of C2C Gold. We trade on the CSE as CTOC. And I am joined by my CEO, Lori Walton, who I have known for about 15 years and is a geologist that has worked across North and Southern America. And also my CEO, Camille Zhao, who I've worked with for a number of years. As an aside, we are an all-female team, and it just happened to work out that way. We are compiling the best team. Our projects are in the central Newfoundland Gold Belt. We started acquiring projects under C2C around November of last year from Sean Ryan, and we have quite a large land position, just under 1,200 square kilometers. We see Newfoundland as a very highly prospective area. Excited about what Newfound Gold's been doing, because to date there's been a lot of shallow drilling and there isn't a lot of showings through the till. So, we see this as an amazing opportunity in an incredibly progressive jurisdiction with great government support. And one of the things that I really like about it is when other governments were cutting, Newfoundland Labrador actually expanded their work in the Geological Survey, which has led to a lot of this information that's benefiting all of us. So our properties, Millertown, Badger, and Barons Lake, we acquired from Sean. We did expand our staking in the area, and you'll see from our news we're still acquiring projects. Our team's in the field right now, starting our soil sampling, and our drill permits are coming along. The new projects that we've just announced have showings. The last one we announced is adjacent to Sokoman's property. And so we will be establishing some drill targets very quickly so we can move into a drill program this year as well. Most of the projects are located between the Red Indian Line and the Valentine Lake Shear Zone. And we see some similarities to some projects across Abitibi and Bendigo throughout Newfoundland. And I'm looking forward to one of our directors, Rich Goldfarb, speaking tomorrow. Rich is very clear that he sees Newfoundland as one of the two best places in the world for discoveries of economic size. With that, I'm going to hand it off back to you, Greg. And again, happy to be here. Also want to mention that I did start Newfoundland.Gold because I see the value of this collective marketing and very excited about this.
Yeah, great alliance to get the message out. I'm shocked that more mainstream investors don't understand what's happening here. They should be listening right now to what we're talking about. And that brings me to a point, I've been trading these junior mining shares for over 40 years personally, 21 of which I've been a newsletter writer these past 21 years. I've been through multiple area plays in my career, both personally and as a newsletter writer. And I can tell you, I've really looked into this because I don't want to get burned like I have with some other area plays that can tend to come and go. This looks like it has real teeth, real staying power at a time when I believe gold is going to be moving up dramatically. And, this is a very exciting situation. Other area plays, they get super hot and then they fizzle quickly because there's something lacking. With the Yukon, when the first Yukon gold rush happened, it was because the power line wasn't going to be there. And the whole thing was like a dagger to the heart. The whole thing came to a crashing, burning end, right? This looks very different to me. This really looks like, you got supportive government, you got certainty with mining permit law, you've got skilled labor infrastructure, ocean ports, within 100 miles of any mining area, high grade gold potential, a model that's pretty simple to understand. And, I'm very excited about it. So the first question I want to direct to Craig, because obviously Newfound Gold is the model. They've discovered, made this discovery that has broken open the understanding in this area. And Craig, you started to address this, and I'm sorry I cut you off there because I wanted to get through the introductions, but geologically, what are we looking for? I mean, it seems that we're looking for these deep-seated structural faults that define the epizonal gold model that you found at both Keats and the Lotto Zone discoveries. How likely do you think it is that now that the understanding's been broken open, that other companies can match what you're doing?
Yeah, well, to answer that question specifically, as you alluded to, Greg, one of the key elements to the geology in Newfoundland is that it is a sort of 400 plus million year old collision zone where the African North American plate collided and created these very deep seated structures right across Newfoundland. And the gold mineralization, certainly on the Queensway project and on a number of the other projects in Newfoundland, is related to that collision event, to the very deep crustal breaks that happened during that event, the plumbing that then brought fluids up and led to the gold mineralization, including the very high-grade epizonal type gold mineralization. So this is a very big, in fact, that model continues across into Ireland and down through the Maritimes, offshore back into Maine, and it's the formation of the Appalachian Mountains as well. So, it's a very, very big global scale crustal event. And so I think to get to the answer to the question, I think that there's very good potential, not just on our project, but on a number of these other projects for some very significant discoveries here.
Yeah, and I mean, it looks to me this could be the biggest gold event in our lives. It has potential for that, and we'll see what happens. There's 30 plus companies already working in the area. I'm sure the staking rush that's happening, there'll be more coming along, but plenty of opportunity for those who are in attendance. You're not too late. This is still early days, and I think this gold bull market that we're experiencing, I believe gold is going to a new all-time high and then some. This is just the beginning of some very big moves that are about to happen starting later this summer, going into the fall, and for years to come. So very, very good timing for a model like this to come about for investors who are smart enough to follow this and get involved with all the right companies. So with that, let's see here. When you guys have to work in the field, let's just address this up front because I know we're going to get the question. What are the COVID issues we got to deal with here as we're going out into the field? How complicated is it? Anybody? Chris, why don't you take that one because you seem to have a little insight into that before we got online here.
Yeah, it's obviously a bit of an inconvenience, but you do what you have to do. I was in Newfoundland for 3 weeks, came back a couple of weeks ago, going back this weekend. Right now, mining is an essential business, so we are allowed to work. If you are not at work, you have to self-isolate for 14 days. There's paperwork you have to do before you get there. Then you have to arrange for 3 COVID tests. And it's like I say, it's a minor inconvenience. We have a crew of about 6 or 7 staying in the same house. So with people rotating in and out, basically you're in isolation the whole time. Get your groceries delivered. You can't go to the bars, which is that's great. They don't have to crack the whip. You're here to work. That's all you can do. Sorry. But the good news that as of a couple of hours ago, the Newfoundland government announced their plan for reopening, and what they're saying is tentatively as of July 1st, if you've had 2 vaccinated, if you're fully vaccinated, you will be able to travel without any restrictions whatsoever. Just the normal, wearing a mask in public place, stuff like that. But no paperwork, no isolation. If you have the 2 vaccines, if you have 1, then you would have to either have a pre-arrival negative test or isolate for a couple of days until you get tested. So it's a minor inconvenience, but it's not seriously affecting our ability to get the job done.
If I could add something, Greg.
Yeah.
I think what's really important is our sampling crew is in the field now, and they did their self-isolation as well as our exploration manager. But there's a labor force in Newfoundland that we are all drawing from, and they're experienced in mining because they've been through the mining cycles and had to move away for work. So it's easy to hire local and to work with respect to the communities by keeping people where necessary in the camps. But very, very skilled labor force that we're able to draw from.
Great. Okay, well, it sounds doable. You know, I mean, I think it's been a little discouraging for investors. They were, okay, what's COVID going to do to this? How's it going to be a negative? Investors are always trying to cover themselves, and I think that's why it's such an important question to address here. Let's talk about some of the other major players. Obviously, Newfound Gold is the key player, but there's been other companies in the area. Who are some of the major players that were before us?
Well, I think Exploits is another company that has acquired a very large land position and is coming on quite strongly. Mike Collins will be speaking tomorrow from Exploits, but they've been doing quite well. I believe they've started drilling. I think there's Lab Gold on tomorrow as well.
Right.
Sokoman Minerals, they're joining our group as well. So there's some definite leaders in the field that are really helping the rest of us build a great deal of knowledge. And I think the work of Sean Ryan, Denny Lavallee is amazing in what he's done. Sean Ryan's been doing an incredible amount of research very quietly behind the scenes and putting together some interesting models. And that's what you're seeing with the number of deals he's been doing. And I think that will lead to some very good drill targets that they'll develop.
Yeah. And anybody can answer this one. Do you feel like there's going to be a point where the opportunity wanes? I mean, there's only so much land, and it's a lot of land, and you've already got over 30 players. Will it get to the point where, unless you can get an X amount of land, it's not worth really getting involved anymore? It's probably going to all be gobbled up. Would that be fair to say at some point?
I would agree with that, Greg. I think, think back quite a number of years now to some of the big area plays, and the ground does certainly get taken up. But I also make the point that within any of these project areas, including our own, the Queensway project's over 100 kilometers north to south. So while the acquisition of land might become a lot more challenging, each of the companies here is going to have a very long time, decades and decades, to even scratch the surface on some of these projects. There's a lot of ground here that's prospective.
Right, the scale is amazing. I mean, your situation, you're saying 100 kilometers. I mean, you could drill 100 kilometers of, you have a 200,000 meter drill program, and 100 kilometers. That's a lot of drilling.
Well, some key points around that, Greg, is that there's certainly over our project area, and I think most of the projects, is a very thin glacial till cover that masks the underlying rocks, and it's shallow enough that it's not a problem in the longer term in terms of mining and that kind of thing. But if that wasn't there, I would imagine these discoveries would have been made many years ago, and you could explore this ground very, very quickly. But that glacial till covers could sort of been a blanket over this geology. But specifically, again, using our project as an example, but we've got sort of over 7 kilometers on the Appleton Fault and 12 kilometers on the JBP Fault, the two deep structures on the north part of our property. But those structures continue for 70 plus kilometers to the south. And we've done a very large geochem gold intil survey over that area, particularly over the projection of those deep structures based on geophysics. And that's revealed some very large gold anomalies coincident with those structures, and we're in the process of, vectoring in on the source of that gold. And I would imagine that situation is very similar on a number of these other projects as well.
Yeah. Well, in your case, when you're saying this glacial till covering, so it's kind of like blind drilling, but you guys on your Keats discovery, you had the famous Keats Rock now that did outcrop in that area. So there is some outcrop, but what's the best way for companies to go about exploring? Several of you have mentioned different types of technology that's being used, and I've learned about Gold Spot Discoveries and their AI technology that's been used. Chris, do you have anything to say about that?
Yeah, well, following up on what Craig said about the lack of outcrop, one thing, the LiDAR survey we flew last year, we are finding actually very useful in finding genuine outcrops as opposed to areas with just elevated terrain, drumlins and things like that. So we are identifying outcrops that we didn't know about. And then the soil sampling, till sampling, we had over the years a number of surveys, till sampling, soil sampling, B horizon, all using different methodology to collect samples, all using different methodology to analyze those. So it's very difficult to combine that into a comprehensive data set. So we have we're carrying out a very large, almost covering the whole property with a soil survey right now with, I believe this is the same company Janet's talking about, Ground Truth Exploration. Very well designed program. The techniques are good. Their efficiency is excellent. It's a bit of a commercial, I guess, for them. It's a very good way to get a comprehensive coverage of a very large area, and then key in on target areas. We've got, from historic work, we had 7 or 8 areas that were targeted for with anomalous various surveys, but you don't know really what you've got. It's nothing you can put a drill hole on right away. So you've got to integrate that with everything else. But the soil survey, we're very excited about the help it will give us.
Yeah.
How about two things I would add, Greg, is and I know there's always a split opinion on geophysics, but geophysics works here, and it's structure. Structure is key. So when you're looking at the prospective opportunities, and that I think Sean is presenting next, and he'll go into a lot more detail on that as well.
Yeah, I don't want to steal the thunder from him right now.
I don't think you can.
Him. Over the years, Sean's one of my favorite guys in the mining business. I'll never forget when I interviewed him right when he made that initial discovery up in the Yukon that started the gold rush up there, and he got all this fame and fortune came his way. And I remember seeing him at PDAC, and here he was in a suit, and he looked like a penguin out of water, and he felt so uncomfortable. But that's Sean. He's great guy, great character. You'll hear from him after we're done here. But anyway, so let's see, how much time do we got left? We've got about 10 minutes before we get into the attendee questions. Why not each one of you, Craig will start, then Chris, then Janet. Is there a question you would like to answer for the attendees that hasn't been asked yet? Is there something that you think is important enough to bring up with this at this point? And I'll let you take it from there. One question, answer it, and then go to the next person. Craig, you got one, or whoever has one first, go.
Sure, no, I can go. I think I would, I won't frame it in a question exactly, but I'll just kind of talk about how I look at the Queensway project, and including from an investment point of view. And I look at it as both narrowly. So you look narrowly at Keats or at Lotto or even the Knob, which Noranda drilled south of the highway, and some of the other areas we're drilling. And on that kind of scale, there's we now understand, I think, fairly well the genetic model for the mineralization, the overall orogenic environment, and then particularly the epizonal mechanism, which I won't try and describe, but is what leads to this very high-grade gold, and actually, again, we think is very, very, very similar to what emplaced the high-grade gold at Fosterville, including in the Swan Zone. So narrowly looking at each of these zones, Keats comes right to surface. You can kind of look at the geometry, the fact it's on infrastructure, the grades, the widths, etc. In terms of getting a sense of value per ounce, number of ounces, etc. And then from that closer view to step back and look at the very big picture, the 100 kilometers of strike, and then think about, the potential. Why wouldn't there be repetitions of those kind of zones? In our case, across our property and on other properties as well. I think the historic exploration here had some very high-grade gold, but didn't really get quite to the tenor that we found at Keats. And in any case, there was a lot of confusion historically about the genetic model. There was even thoughts it was Cowan style and epithermal and different sort of ways of looking at it. And now that we have this kind of Fosterville orogenic epizonal model and can explain that high grade, we can each go hunting for other zones of that high grade along these big structures. So it's kind of looking at that interplay between if you like, the example discoveries so far, and then the potential for multiple of these discoveries on our property, and I think on some of the other companies as well that are exploring here. So that's sort of, to me, that's kind of a basic way to look at the value and the investment potential of our project and of other projects as well.
Yeah, no, I think that's a valid point. Great for attendees to hear that. So that's why I wanted to turn this over to you guys, because you're boots on the ground. You see what's going on. I'd love to be able to get up there to a site visit, but as an American going to Canada right now is not likely.
Yeah.
So, Chris, how about your question that you would like?
I noticed earlier somebody had one of the one of the audience had made a comment about permitting, and that is obviously always a potential risk factor in any jurisdiction. What we found so far, at least for the exploration phase, is it is very straightforward, very transparent, for simple programs which don't involve any mechanical disturbances. It's strictly a notification process. So you send in your details, and if you haven't heard anything back in 14 days saying, no, whoa, you can't do it, then you're free to go. For drilling, trenching, where there is disturbance, obviously a little bit longer, you have to get proper approvals. But I think our drill program application, we got approved in about 6 weeks. Trenching about the same. The drilling, we had another week or so to get a water use permit. A week to get a temporary commercial cutting permit, so we could put some drill pads in and things like that. So very, very straightforward. And so far, we have not come up against any significant roadblocks that would impede our ability to get the work done in a timely manner.
Right. Yeah, I've done some research, just as a newsletter writer and being in this sector for so long as a personal investor. These area plays, you can get burned on them because they can get super hot and they can burn out like very quickly. And before I really got involved with this with Janet and C2C, I heard about it. I started researching. I was trying to compare it with other area plays I've seen over the years, and this one just really stands out to me. It's got size. It's got the gold market going for it, a long-term gold bull market that's probably going to end in a super bull market. So we have plenty of time for the companies to do their thing without the rug getting pulled out from under them. Newfoundland's as good as it gets. You know, in my years of traveling around the world, I always say some of the nicest people I've ever met in the world are from Newfoundland, right? I remember the weather was bad. I couldn't get out. And the hotels were all booked, and I had people that didn't even, you know, they knew who I was, but they didn't really know me from Adam, and they're inviting me over to their house to stay. And I was, that wasn't just, it was so nice, you know, they invited me right into their family, and, you know, fortunately I had that invitation because otherwise it would have been difficult during that bad weather when I got stuck there. So Janet, how about your question?
I think my question would be one that I've heard several times from people who are skeptical. If Newfoundland's so great, why wasn't it discovered before this? And where's all the investment been? And I think there's a few good answers to that question. The jurisdiction has a strong history in base metals and operating mines in Labrador. So it has a mining background. It has a good permitting regime. It has low power rates for mines. And there was companies like Noranda that were in there, but there was not a lot of deep drilling. And so it's really an opportunity that was overlooked because there was a lot of other stuff going on. So when a company like Newfound comes in and puts in such a concerted effort with a significant drill program, and you combine that with people like Sean Ryan that are deep in the research, all of a sudden the opportunities emerge. But I think there is a skepticism because it hasn't been developed to this point. So really, it's at a point where other jurisdictions were decades ago, except you're dealing with a very confined area on the island. And I think there's a lot of opportunity. And I think we're just starting to see it now. And I'm looking forward to the next company that hits it on the drill results. So I think that's really going to perk people up. And I think it's an environment where, and it's a nice euphemism for Newfoundland, all boats will float higher when that happens. And I'm very much looking forward to that this season.
Yeah, all the boats would float. We get several other discoveries that are confirming this model that Newfound Gold has uncovered. And boy, I think this will get the money, and the investors would come to this area in droves. And that's kind of what our mining business needs. We need a big new discovery area like this that's not a one and done area play. We need one that's got some teeth and some longevity. And like I said, I've compared this to other area plays that I've been involved with. This one has way better than anything I've ever experienced in the past. So we'll see. I mean, the drills will tell us the story as always, but you know, it just seems like this has all the ingredients. It looks like the planets may have aligned, and what we've all hoped for in our industry over the years, to have such a big discovery that becomes the hottest area play in our lifetimes, would be just a great way to go out, and we'll all make a ton of money. So
I like the way Sean Ryan says it when he says this is a once in a lifetime opportunity.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt about that for sure. So let's see here. So I got to get into, we're going to start our questions with our attendees here. So I pause here a second. I got to just read some of these and see what everyone's saying here. Public. Okay. so Richard asks, what would we watch out for on the risk side? Where would be the end up being the power line issue that nailed the final nail in the coffin for the first Yukon gold rush we saw there? But what would we watch out from a risk side? Would it be permits? Would it be environmental concerns, infrastructure, cash cost to get the gold out, etc.? Anybody can answer.
I'd say one of the risks is there's a lot of companies and there's a lot of demands on infrastructure. And so we're all looking for drills and acquiring drills, but I think we're going to strain the system a little bit. But I think we're all going to adjust quite well. So I think it's a matter of knowing what you need in advance and acquiring it.
Right, because there's going to be a lot of companies that need assays. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of meters of drilling. We've been through this last year in the exploration industry in North America, where assays were severely delayed. Good question, Richard, and good answer, Janet. Next, with the staking rush. Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
Just maybe add a little bit on the assaying. There's, as far as I know, there's just the one accredited lab on the island. Up in Springdale, I was at that lab a couple of weeks ago. They're heavy into construction to expand their capacity. Of course, they recognize that, yes, it's going to be a busy summer with all the work, and I'm sure quite a lot of the assays will be sent to Vancouver or other places. Hopefully not as bad as it was in the Yukon 10 years ago, where we were waiting for 4 or 5, even 6 months sometimes for results. But it's obviously a challenge for the service providers when you have these big swings in demand. They know they're going to have a lot of demand this year. They expand the capacity. They're hoping that it'll be there next year, and hopefully it will be. But if it's not, then they suffer for that.
Right.
And other supplies, pickup trucks, very, very hard to find on the island. We actually shipped one from Vancouver. It only cost $3,000 to ship it there, but it was it was the only way to get one with a reasonable price.
Well, I think
there are some supplies issues.
Yeah, I think the COVID risk is going to present some shortages to everybody, every industry, whether it's mining or whatever. Down here in the States, I was looking for a used truck for one of my sons, and they were not to be had. I mean, the price on them was almost like a brand new truck, and there was just no inventory. And dealers were begging people to trade cars in so they'd have some used inventory. But there's always risk.
To some extent, is that, I mean, it's that dynamic that's leading potentially to inflation and to higher gold prices. So while it's a risk on the one hand, it might be an opportunity as well.
Exactly.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Absolutely. All right. Well, that was a great question, Richard. I think we really dealt with that one very well. The next question I think is a little premature, but I'll ask it anyway. With the staking rush, when does the panel anticipate consolidation through merger and acquisition? Well, we're a little early there, but what's going on with Newfound Gold, I think that would be that's definitely going to get the attention of the majors, and but they have a long way to go in proving that up to a 43-101. So my take on it would be it could take some time before we get to that point. Anybody else?
I agree. I think we need results, but Craig's out in front on this one.
Yeah, he would be the leader in that one.
Yeah, I mean, completely agree, Greg. It's there's just so much on our plate in terms of exploration, both again on the targets that we're sort of infilling and stepping out on, but certainly, to really begin to assess the potential of the project is going to take quite a lot of time. We've got 200,000 meters in our program, and we're probably about 25% into that at this point. Yeah, I mean, M&A is possible at any point, but I think it's early days in terms of, yeah.
Well, I mean, M&A, I would say, look, you have to come out with a PEA first, right? Or at least some kind of delineation of how much gold is there, let alone doing the engineering studies. And you being an engineer would know better than most. But is there a timeline for, again, this is premature, but wouldn't the PEA be the first milestone in such a question?
Yeah, definitely, Greg. I mean, there'd be an initial resource and then a PEA based on that resource. And yeah, the timing of doing that, there's many factors that coming into thinking about that. In our case, I actually think we could elect to move to that fairly soon, but there's just so much going on in terms of still stepping out, even at Keats, where I'm just, where it's wide open. We don't know where that's going to go. And Lotto and all these other areas. So where we obviously think about it quite a lot, but we're not, we're not putting a peg in the ground and saying we're going to aim to do a resource by a certain date at this point, which would then form the basis of a PEA. So.
Great. Okay, I think we've answered that one. Here's a follow-up to the risk assessment question earlier. What about a change of government in Newfoundland? Could that be a negative potential risk if the government change right in the middle of this and pulls the rug out from under us? I mean, anybody want to address that?
Because I had a number of conversations with the government of Newfoundland, Labrador, both before and after the election. And I think what's really important to remember is, as a Canadian, you remember when Newfoundland went through hard times and the people from Newfoundland had to leave. And I was living in a northern town in northern Canada, and 2/3 of the population was from Newfoundland. So they've been through difficult times, and they value having the ability to develop their own economy and their own labor force, stay at home and work. And the oil and gas industry has suffered in the resource revenue of the government. And they made a clear strategy a number of years ago to build up their profile to attract more investment in the mining space, which they have been very successful in doing so. And to me, it's a source of revenue governments need. And that is a driving factor to the interest and the willingness to support natural resource revenue development, whether it's oil and gas or mining, and hopefully both for the province. So, I think politics is always a factor, but I like to think that in the end, and maybe it's not a short-term issue, but in the end, it's economics. We put money into local communities. We put jobs into local communities. We put money into government coffers. And in the end, and there is only one way to do mining, and it's the right way, it is going to build a stronger province. So I'd like to think that is what's going to drive things ultimately. It's taxes. I'll leave Chris if he wants to add anything.
Chris,
basically, I agree with everything you said there, Janet. I know that the oil and gas industry in Newfoundland is going through some tough times. I believe the Come By Chance refinery is shut down. There was a big new development proposed for Terra Nova area. I forget which company it was. One of the majors that's probably not going to go ahead. The revenues are way down, of course. They need to replace the oil and gas revenues. They're really struggling. They're on borderline bankrupt right now in the province. And everybody I've talked to in the Grand Falls, Windsor area is said, bring it on. We need the jobs. We need the investment. And everybody's excited about it. So is there a risk? Well, there's always going to be some political risk. I would say it's pretty low in this jurisdiction.
Yeah, I would agree. When I've compared this little bit of research I did comparing area plays during my career, this one seems to have the least amount of risk when I look back on it with hindsight. And you're always looking for the answer to the unanswered question, right? Or the thing we didn't see. Oh, we didn't understand the power line issue in the Yukon, blah, 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 at the time. Is there something we're missing here? You know, I've really been going down that road as deep as I can to ask myself all the questions before I talk to my subscribers about really, you know, getting on board here in a much bigger way than I already have. But like I said, I'm full speed ahead on this one. There's always risk, like you said, Chris, in anything. It's life, right? Life is risk, but you try to limit those and manage it as best you can. And I think the companies in Newfoundland and the government of Newfoundland is giving us a green light. So as investors, I think this is one of the safest jurisdictions to invest in with such an exciting, I mean, truly, once in a lifetime, like Sean was saying, opportunity to make money in the mining space at a time when gold is obviously going to go through the roof, and very exciting. So that ends our questions with the attendees. We have about 9 minutes. So if you can promise to stay to the 3 minutes, because they hold me tight to this ending right at on the hour here, and I've got to, you know, briefly introduce Sean Ryan as the keynote speaker. So 3 minutes or less, you talk about anything you want for yourself, your company. Go ahead. Chris, why don't you start?
Okay, thank you, Greg. I know somebody just posted a question: has K9 Gold started drilling or exploration? Yes, we have started exploring. We've done a lot of studies and a lot of surveys. We will be starting drilling in about 2 weeks. So hopefully that answers that. I didn't mention earlier our share structure. We have about 53 million shares currently outstanding, 92 million fully diluted. We are fully funded for the 5,000 meter program we've got going, or about to start, and well beyond that. We've been very successful in raising funds, and the way our stock price is going, you might see some of that warrant money coming in.
Great. Janet, why don't you go next?
I would like to thank Eric Sprott. Eric Sprott has been very good to many companies in the jurisdiction, and he's ahead out in front on seeing the opportunity. Has taken a position in, I think, all of 3 of our companies. And I think people like that are incredibly valuable to building the profile of the jurisdiction, and his absolute focus on Newfoundland and the gold rush and the opportunity here, I think, is serving all of us extremely well. He has just under 20% of our company, and I think very similar to a number of companies in the Alliance. And I think that is going to start to generate more discussion on what's going on in the jurisdiction. We have an exciting season ahead of us at C2C, already in the field, and more news coming. We're also looking at additional properties all the time. We do a lot of due diligence, and I just am very excited about what I'm seeing in Newfoundland. I'm thankful to Craig and his team. They have done an amazing job and created something, I think, that's fabulous for not only all of our companies, but the people in Newfoundland.
With that, Craig, we'll let you wrap it up.
Yeah, well, I would just really emphasize how remarkable this, just focus on our discovery at this point, but it certainly extends beyond our property. But in my career as a mining engineer, looking at mining projects, I mean, sometimes you find fabulous ore deposits, tonnage and grade, but they're remote or in a political unstable jurisdiction, or have many different kinds of challenges. And when you look at, I'll just use Keats and Queensway as kind of the case here, but we're on the Trans-Canada Highway, 15 kilometers to the west of Gander, which is 18,000 approximately people. It's a And as Janet was pointing out, I mean, a lot of these very skilled people, it's a politically positive jurisdiction for the reasons discussed. There's an available workforce, permitting quite straightforward, to industry standard, but very straightforward. And the mineralization itself, wide intervals of high grade coming right to surface. If you were just to imagine all the elements of a discovery that you wanted, and I can't think of a box that doesn't tick. And I've never seen that before. So I just think it's very exciting. It's quite a remarkable discovery, and it's just fantastic to be able to. And Newfoundland itself is just a great place, wonderful people, and so couldn't be more thankful for what we've got. It's very remarkable.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Craig. And thanks to all of you as our panelists, our attendees. Thankful for the Newfoundland Gold Alliance for this great venue that is giving us all some really good information and insight into one of the best investment opportunities I see and ahead of us here. This is very exciting times. With that, I will just briefly tell everyone this is day 2 of the Newfoundland Gold Alliance. There's day 3, so we invite you back tomorrow to partake of the moderation and panelists that will appear tomorrow. With that, I will just briefly introduce Sean Ryan, who's our keynote speaker today. And Sean has been a personal friend of mine ever since I met him back at the Yukon Gold Rush days when I did a big interview with him that went viral. And, he's been one of my favorite people, like I said, in the mining business. So it's fun to be able to work with Sean again. And I don't really think he needs much of an introduction. He's a explorationist extraordinaire. He got his start looking for mushrooms and looking for gold have some similar anomalies in the soils. So as I learned many, many years ago. But with that, we're right at the hour. I will turn it over to Sean. Welcome, Sean Ryan.